I did an intervention once with a good friend of mine. He was strung out on cocaine and just a week from losing his job. And so I got together with his girlfriend and his parents, and we did the intervention, and it worked. He went into recovery, he went into treatment, but he didn't speak to me for several years. But eventually he did. And now we're closer than we ever were, and he's quite an inspirational young man that I really appreciate having in my life. I have a friend going back to school days in grade 6 when we both took our first drink of alcohol together. That was the thing back then to try, and of course I never had access to it in the house, and so he got some somewhere, and so we were acting out as kids, but he became an alcoholic, and so I lost track of him for 30 years. And you can imagine how delighted I was when I received a phone call about 12 years ago. And he said, "Is this Paul Browning, who used to be Paul Rockwood?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "This is Joey." Oh, I was just so thrilled, because he's a sweet, sweet man with a great sense of humor. And he's been sober for years and working for the federal government, just retired. I'm looking forward to him moving from Newfoundland so I can see him more often. So you see, even if we have to let go of some friends, it doesn't mean that they can't be friends again. And in fact, letting go of them might be just part of what tilts them toward realizing they've got a problem they have to get help with. And so that's a part, is being loyal to what's really in the best interests of ourselves and others. And if other people are just overtaken and mismanaging their lives, then we need some separation from that. I've noticed over the years that you can pretty well judge the quality of someone's life by the quality of their friends. And I've always told my kids, you can have a lot of associates, friends in a loose sense of the word that you play sports with or do this or do that, but only open your heart to people of good character, people who are going somewhere, people who have the same values you do. And when you find somebody in your life, whatever their age, who really is a remarkable human being and they take an interest in you at all, invest in that interest. Because nothing will see you ahead better and move your life forward in a more healthy way than having good friends who can teach us something. It was a teacher who became a great friend of mine, who led me to change my theology and led me out of craziness into the wonderful life I've been given in the United Church of Canada. She taught me, just by her example, that love is better than doctrine every day of the week. And the truth is not the beliefs that we fight over. There's only one real truth, and that's love. What a lesson to learn, simply by seeing how someone lives their life. And her life was so compelling that it changed minds. Friends are channels of God's grace. They're channels of God's goodness. And we're that channel too to others. I enjoyed watching some of the Summer Olympics. Did any of you take them in? What a great Olympics it was for Canada. We did our best ever. Had the most medals in a year where countries weren't boycotting it. And as I listened to them, interviewed after they'd won a match, won their medal, so many of them said the same thing. How they appreciated the support of their coach and the staff and their family. And of course, when we have that kind of support, we can do more than we otherwise could do. One of my favorite lesson plans for church camp or Sunday school is where you get the kids to see how many push-ups they can do. And so you get everybody to do push-ups and you see how well they do and you mark it all down. And then you have them do push-ups again. Now you'd think the second time they do push-ups they're going to do fewer because they're a bit tired out. Except that the second time all of us cheer them on, and without exception. The second time, they always do more push-ups because there are people cheering them on. Friends, do you see that energy? That's what we're talking about when we talk about the divine. When we talk about the devil or evil, we're talking about that negative energy that takes you over and takes you to a place you'd never go to on your own. It works both ways. But when we support each other, and that's what I love about this church. I mean, you're such fine people. And you've had good friends, and you know what it is to be a good friend, and you're willing to extend that to all those who come here. And you know, that's the great gift. I was talking to a minister who was working with a Presbyterian church in town, and you know, the traditional approach is to get the congregation and to say, okay, what's all your talents, and what's all the, you know, it's called a inventory of resources. And so you get everybody, I can do this, I can do that. Yeah. Okay, well then, you know, what can we do with outreach or a program with these talents, right? Like, honestly, I've never seen it work. And I said to her, look, it's simpler than that. Your people are great people, and they have healthy families. And they don't know how remarkable they are. Just like you probably don't know how remarkable you are, and you don't know how remarkable your families are. And I said, the people who are looking for a church home today are people who are looking for a place that will treat them the way you treat your families and you treat the people your families, your kids bring home. And I said, that's the great resource we have. And if you could just get them excited about being their best people and being willing to share that with whoever shows up, and then let the community know that, I said, that'll do more than all this work and effort. And I said, you're all tired out generally. You know, volunteers are in churches. We don't need more work. We just need to share the love and realize and let people know. Because when people see a church, unfortunately, they're not thinking love. You know? And those of us in the United Church, we've just got no idea how messed up other churches are. And in most other churches, there's always a poison pill. The church says, oh, we love you, you know, come on in, you're our friend. But then once they get their claws in you, then they start with the doctor. Well, you better do this or you better do that, or else, you know, all the warm fuzzies are gone. And so we have this great treasure. And we've learned it over the years to be kind friends. And the fact we're able and willing to share that with others is a great blessing. I think of the Olympics too. I always like the rowing, you know, the sculls and all that kind of stuff. I'm from down east. We got great rowing teams down there. And I just think it's so cool that in some of those, there's one person on the boat that doesn't even row. And they're the one that's just encouraging them and getting them how fast they should row and doing the count. And they can go faster and row better with somebody on the boat that doesn't even row. I mean, isn't that cool? I mean, that shows what our influence is. I just love that. So even if you can't row anymore, you can encourage. And through encouraging people, the job will get done. One of my favorite stories is the way that friends sacrifice for one another. We think of Jonathan sacrificing the kingship and connections with his family. I mean, a big, big sacrifice. But he did it because it was the right thing to do and for a friend that he loved. And one of my favorite stories is a Willie Nelson story. He's a great country star, but he can play almost anything, and he's got some amazing music with different artists. And he's a real spiritual person. And he wrote a biography that I really enjoyed reading. He talks about his belief in God and God's power in his life. But like most famous musicians and songwriters, he's known his fair share of struggle. And back in the early days, even when he had popular bands and even when he had a couple songs on the radio, he was broke. And they were living in this rundown little trailer, and his wife was working full-time as a waitress in a diner as well as trying to raise their kids, and he was desperate. And so he went to meet with a friend, Hank Cochran, who was a more successful songwriter than Willie was at the time. And he sat down and he took up the guitar and he played a song for him. And his friend, Hank, just loved the song. I mean, was just amazed by it. And Willie said, "I'll sell you the rights to that song for $15. Hank looked at Willie and said, "That song is a hit. That song is a great hit. You can't sell that song to me or to anyone. You've got to hold on to that song." And Willie said, "I can't. I'm desperate. My kids need clothes." And Hank said this, "I'll loan you $300, which was a lot of money 60 years ago. I'll loan you $300, and I don't care if I ever get repaid if you promise to not sell that song. And I'll get you a job working for my boss writing songs." So Willie got to hold on to what is probably his greatest song. Crazy, crazy for being so. Isn't that an amazing story? I mean, then Hank went to his boss and said to his boss, "You should hire Willie. He's a great songwriter." And his boss says, "I got enough songwriters at the moment." And then Hank said this, "Take the $50 a week raise that you told me last week I was getting and use it to hire Willie Nelson." Friends, that's integrity. That's real friendship. Not using your position or an opportunity to benefit from a friend in a way that hurts them. That's being honest and kind and fair. Willie's friend knew that Crazy was a once-in-a-lifetime hit, and he could have rationalized that he was giving Willie what Willie asked for. In fact, he could have given Willie $300 for the song, and Willie would have gone home excited. But his friend was so spiritually in tune to what a good friend really is and to what love calls us through that he did what he did. His friend protected Willie and helped him find a job at his own expense, just as Jonathan protected and helped David, even at the cost of losing the chance to become king. You know, finding a good friend is a wonderful thing. And it often leads to other good friends. In closing, I've had an experience myself of a good friend. Some years ago, when Jackson was looking to buy a house, I went to a real estate agent at the Trinity congregation, and I'm just, I know him so well, and his name escapes me, but he's a wonderful, wonderful man. And but he said to me, "Paul, I'm retiring." And so he said, "Here's another fellow who's a great guy, Rick." And Rick was a real estate agent and helped Jackson get his house, and he's become a friend. And so this year, we've put our house up for sale because Rick's helped us to find another just lovely home that we could afford. I just couldn't believe it. And so our house was up for sale, and because that, Damien, our other son, started looking around at houses. And Rick, our agent, said to Damien, "Well, why don't you buy your parents' home? Because then you won't have to pay me any fees, and your parents won't have to pay me any fees for selling the home to you." Now, do you see how that's a good friend? Right? He's willing to forego thousands of dollars in fees because he wants to help Damien and help us out. And that's what friendship's all about. And so that's what integrity is, and that's what Damien did. So Damien's buying our house on September the 8th. This is pretty cool. Now, will gift our agent with an expression of our appreciation, because we don't want him to lose all his fees, because that's what good friends do in return. But as Christians, let's celebrate that in the Christian tradition, friendship's at the top of the list. As Christians, we draw inspiration from our friend Jesus, who gave his life for all of us, gave his life challenging injustice, gave his life telling us the way life really should be and can be and will be, gave his life sticking up for those people who had no power, gave his life to help God pave a highway of fairness, respect, and kindness. And Jesus, our friend, has promised that he would never leave us or forsake us, because good friends never do, and because love is forever. May we see Christ in our good friends, and may our good friends see Christ in us. Amen.